let's say you was dating a chick, right? And she looked good. Everything was perfect. But you found out her dad is like some sort of crime boss. Is that gonna stop you from talking to her? Let me know down in the comments. Running to the trap, she in the streets, playing with the best, yeah, we don't freeze. Niggas try to steal my energy, waves with the ice, yeah, surfboard me. I get the bag and I dip, yeah. Said I'm a rock star, found out all of the drip, yeah. Diamonds in my charm, like I just wearing them hips, yeah. Think like a porn star, manifest all of my dreams, yeah. I'm living like a god, rock star, trap star, got the gas with me, yeah. What's good, Dark Knight gang? I'm Neptune. Hey, bro, today I'm about to react to a video, The Evil Life of a 15-year-old Mafia boss. Yeah. So, we're going to see some 15-year-old kid, bro. 15. This nigga in the 9th grade, my G. A Mafia boss at 15. You get nothing but my respect. That's pretty fire, though. How do you even pull that off? Maybe his father was the boss and he got off, so then he picked it up. Nah, they wouldn't do that. Even if his father was the boss and the father got killed off, no way if they're going to let a 15-year-old become my boss. This dude was just a beast. He was hitting licks at like 10 years old. I have no clue. We're about to hop into this video. This should be a fire video, interesting video. I'm ready to have my mind blown. Shout out to the gang. Everybody have a good day. Have a great day. You already know what's up. Yeah. Listen, I ate hella snacks last night, so I'm kind of bloated. But I'm gonna get past it. I'll be straight. Let's go.
At 6 years old, Karen Gravano found a gun under her parents' bed. She figured it had something to do with her dad's service in Vietnam, and like most kids, she was quick to brag about it to her school friends. After a teacher overheard it though, she was quick to have a private conversation about it with her parents. Arriving home from school, Karen was pulled aside by her father, who warned her, "What goes on in our family stays behind these walls. We don't ever talk to anyone else about it." But Karen's father wasn't just a Vietnam vet or a home defense enthusiast. He was Sammy Gravano, otherwise known as Sammy the Bull, underboss of the Gambino crime family and killer of at least 19 men. For young Karen, though, it seemed perfectly normal. Her father worked in construction as far as she was aware, though she knew that there was a certain importance to him. Everyone in the neighborhood seemed to know him, and people would rush over to shake his hand or kiss his cheek when
That's a dope-ass lifestyle. Being a mafia boss? Oh, bro.
he entered a room. Having no clue about her father's dark and evil deeds, Karen assumed her father was just a well-respected and kind man, seeing him lend money to others freely and even buying struggling families' groceries. Like most predators, though, this was merely a cover, everything to lull the locals into acceptance of mafia activity. Drug kingpin Pablo Escobar did the same thing, hiding his desperate attempt to buy people over to his side as acts of kindness, knowing that if his neighborhood turned against him, that'd be the end of him. For Karen, though, the respect that her father commanded
So he's smart.
was hers as well. And not just children, but adults would treat her like the princess she was, even if her father had just ordered one of their own family members killed. At about 10 years old, Karen got sat down in the kitchen by her dad, who warned her that she was about to start hearing things about her father that might be confusing. Sammy's double life, playing the perfect doting father and ruthless mafia figure, was being unraveled, and he wanted to prepare her for the truth she was about to face about her personal hero. He told her how many years ago back in Italy, a group of men had formed a secret group that vowed to always protect each other and their families, even if it meant stealing or hurting other people. That group had moved to America, and he was a part of it. For Karen, it all sounded kind of nice, and she liked the idea of being protected.
Fire.
In reality, it was everyone else that needed protection from her father and his extended family. Karen began to hear about the mafia and the gangster that her father was as she grew older, but she couldn't quite picture her father playing the role the media and others painted of him. She was well aware that he wasn't like the other fathers of the other children at the elite private school she went to. Her dad had tattoos and wore expensive jewelry, and other fathers were mostly lawyers, doctors, and businessmen and wore fancy suits. Karen just assumed her dad was cooler than most other dads. In 1985, Mafia boss Paul Castellano was murdered, and Karen saw her dad vanish for about 2 weeks. In her mind, she knew that he had been involved, but she couldn't quite reconcile that fact with the doting father Sammy the Bull played when at home. Then, at 19, the heroic image of her father disintegrated. The FBI was closing its noose around the necks of various high-ranking organized crime members, including Sammy the Bull. In exchange for leniency in sentencing and going to jail for only 5 years versus life, Sammy agreed to testify against his fellow mafia associates. This shocked Karen to the core. Her father had always stressed that you never told on others, especially—
Come on, Sammy, you signed up for this lifestyle, bro. So if you get caught, you gotta just take what it comes with it. That's what it's about. But let's keep going. This is interesting, man. I'm really enjoying this story. She had no clue that her dad was a mafia boss. As she got older, she figured it out. Now her dad's being locked away in jail, and she heard her dad is a rat. Ooh, let's see how she deals with it.
Especially not to the cops. Even as a kid, if she and her brother would get into a fight, both of them would get punished, one for starting the fight and the other for telling. Karen was so shocked by her father turning informant that she refused to join the family in witness protection, striking out on her own. Despite her father being labeled a rat, Karen's steadfast loyalty to the no-snitching mafia code earned her a bit of respect, though she never translated that into a career of crime on her own, or maybe the cops simply never caught up to her. But what is it like growing up as the son of one of the most violent mob hitmen in the world?
Let's say you was dating a chick, right? And she looked good. Everything was perfect. But you found out her dad is like some sort of crime boss. Is that going to stop you from talking to her? Let me know down in the comments.
Frank DiMatteo was born into a mafia family. His father and godfather were both hitmen for the Gallo brothers, and his uncle was a bodyguard for Frank Costello, as well as being a boss in the Genovese crime family. Like his father, Frank decided school wasn't for him, and he soon dropped out, preferring instead to run the streets with a street gang affiliated with the Gallo crime family. As young as about 8, Frank may not have known that his family was in the mob, or what the mafia was even about, but he was aware that his family was very different from other families. The men of his family were always well-dressed and liked to travel and spend time in groups. Any business talk was very hush-hush though, and just like how young Frank noticed that his family was different from others, he quickly noticed that they were also very secretive. By age 12, Frank was figuring things out, and at age 13, he got his education on the family profession. He began to learn how to drive, running errands for the family around the local area. He drove his father, uncles, and family friends around, and given that he was already 6 foot tall at 13 years old, he was given extra respect of being invited into the meetings they attended. Thus, at just 13, Frank was already hanging out in dance and strip clubs and joining mafia associates for restaurant meetings. One of the
I wish I was 13, a part of that life.
Gallo crime family's assassins became Frank's godfather and took the young boy under his wing. Frank became his personal driver and earned the same respect on the street as his new godfather did. Frank insisted that he wasn't committing any violence at the time yet, but was well aware of the reputation his godfather had for being an extremely violent man. For Frank, though, his godfather was a big-time jokester, always ready to crack a joke or poke fun. Working as a driver for the mafia hitman might have led Frank in on some details of the family business, but generally he was kept in the dark about any actual details of ongoing operations. Frank was well aware of what his family did for a living, but it was mafia code not to share details if you didn't have a need to know. Thus, with Frank working as a driver, he was often in the don't need to know category, and would have to rely on rumors and other people to find out what exactly went on at some of the jobs that he drove mafia associates to. But being a driver for some of the most feared men in the criminal underground had its perks. Even if Frank may not have been privy to the full lifestyle yet, Frank was treated with much the same respect commanded by the men he chauffeured. But slowly, Frank got more direct involvement in the mafia life. This was before the mafia was making money hand over fist, and a lot of Frank and his associates' time was spent figuring out new ways to shake people down. All the old rackets were fair game, from protection scams to straight-up theft and robbery. Cigarette runs were a favorite job for the mafia at the time, with cigarettes being imported illegally and sold on the streets directly to consumers, thus evading many taxes and driving a high profit margin. This, however, was also a favorite money-making scheme for many a terrorist organization, and mafia cigarette runs could often overlap with terror networks, even if the mafia may not have necessarily known about it. At 16 or 17, Frank finally got to meet the infamous Crazy Joey Gallo, a mafia hitman. Gallo was diagnosed with schizophrenia after being arrested as a teenager.
A hitman diagnosed with schizophrenia? That's interesting. You sit up on a hit, his other personality comes out and forgets about it. Or maybe his crazy personality is the one that does all the hits. He probably a cool-ass dude, but then his other personality come out and he go around killing people,
earning him the nickname of Crazy Joey. His actions were directly responsible for the First Colombo War after he kidnapped several high-ranking members of the same crime family he had been working for. Inevitably, Gallo would end up going to jail for 10 years. According to Frank, Joey was a very dangerous man, and not someone to joke around with. If you weren't in on the crew, Joey could be your worst nightmare. If you were a part of the crew, you had nothing to worry about. Immediately upon coming home, Joey launched himself full force into the crime world and made up for lost time by going out drinking and partying. Unlike the rest of the crew, though, Joey would go conduct business in New York City itself, while the rest of the crew struck to their stomping grounds in Brooklyn. Joey and Frank's godfather worked together in the city, and Frank got to see Joey about once a week. While the rest of the men might have joked around, they mostly kept their composure, but Joey Gallo had earned his nickname of Crazy Joey for a reason. He had no fear, and acted much like the old-time gangsters from the 20s, not bothering to hide his activities or even lay low after an operation. He was his own man, and believed nobody would dare touch him for anything he did or said, making him a dangerous dangerous loose cannon. But his previous role in starting the first Colombo War would catch up to him quick. On April 7th, 1972, at 4:30 a.m., Joey and members of his family went to a restaurant in Little Italy to celebrate his 43rd birthday. There, 4 gunmen rushed into the restaurant through a back door, believing a contract to be out on Joey's life by the Colombos. They filled Joey with 20 bullets and left him to die. Frank's Mafia education continued after the murder, and he quickly found out that the old codes of behavior and the respect that the Mafia had previously been known for were all but forgotten by the youngster generations. The strict code of ethics was now a joke to the new generation of mafiosos who hadn't grown up poor like the old mobsters from the 1920s. These men, now in their 60s and 70s, were relics as far as the new generation was concerned. Then, everybody started getting pinched and turned rat. The Mafia code of no snitching was well and truly over, but luckily for Frank, he managed to avoid getting directly tied to any of the numerous crimes he was involved in. Numerous bosses also flipped, and with the family essentially tearing itself apart, Frank and many others took the opportunity to simply leave the lifestyle behind. Growing up in the Mafia can be both a blessing and a curse. You can be groomed from an early age for a prominent role in the profession if your father is in the right position, let alone if he's a capo, but your father's sins can often be your own, and your advancement in the ranks of the Mafia can be very limited or cut off completely if your father or godfather turns rat. But if you're in the right position or born to the right violent mob hitman or crime boss, a lot of that respect is by default yours as well. After all, nobody wants to cross a made man by disrespecting his kids. And in the old days, the strict code of Mafia ethics meant that a man's family was to be respected as much as the made man himself. But that lifestyle is disintegrating as the modern Mafia tries to pull itself back together after decades of being dismantled by the FBI and other law enforcement. While in the past, being a Mafia kid might have afforded you great respect, today you're likely to just be another hood who is out to cut his teeth no different than the rest.
All right, bro. Great video. Great video. Did you hear him at the end? He said now if you're born into the Mafia, it's like nothing special. I didn't know the Mafia was dismantled like that. Damn, growing up in a Mafia family, like I guess when the Mafia was at its height, that shit would have been dope though. Like, I don't know. It's just pretty cool how everybody lives different lives. You know what I'm saying? And we all have different experiences. Having that experience of being someone in the Mafia, I'm sure it was hectic and crazy, but at the same time, it's dope as fuck. Life is what you make it, bro. You gotta live life. Life is what you make it. This was a dope-ass video. Let me know what you guys thought about it down in the comments. We learned some more about the Mafia. We saw how a little girl grew up in the Mafia. She saw her father, and then that nigga turned to a rat. She like, he a rat, cuz. Then we saw a young boy being groomed his whole life. He was the driver at like 15 years old. That's crazy. But great video. Let me know what you guys thought about it down in the comments. Everybody have a good day. Have a great day. Yo. Peace.